Hello, namaste to all of you. Um, Miral, hello, Miral, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. So this time background, I promised you last time that I will try to bring in and have women rishis and yogis as my background for some time. That is one of your requests. So I'm starting with an ancient rishi called Garge Vachanakvi. It She is probably, so, I mean, again, like I said many times, India, when you say old, it's always thousands of years old, and it's very hard to be very specific about this time, etc. But still, generally, we go by belief in India. It is believed that Gargi Vachanakvi lived somewhere around 700 BC or something, somewhere in northern India. And the fame to her is that she was one of the women rishis who were guiding people. Not only she was guiding people, she was so good even in all knowledge, wisdom, ability to debate, etc. She was one of the rishis who challenged a very famous male rishi called Yajnavalkya. Yajnavalkya is one of the rarest individuals we could come across because of his intellectual power. If you ever get to know, if you ever get to read Upanishads, there are stories where he gets into arguments, debates as it were called, outstanding, primarily about the nature of the universe, nature of beings, what impels people to act in a particular way, how do we get over it, and so on and so forth. Um, this Yajnavalkya is supposedly so bright and self-confident. Some of his friend gurus and some of the rishis and other senior rishis got a little annoyed at his so-called arrogance. So they told him, you better spit out. After all, you didn't learn things by yourself. It's all because others gave it to you. And why are you being so arrogant? You spit it out, they told him. He told these people, what do you think that I am dependent on others? I'm happy to spit out all the knowledge. I can build the knowledge myself after that. And he's throughout all the knowledge. And lot of birds called titri birds, they found it very tasteful and they ate away his vomit. And that vomit became Taitri Upanishad, Taitri Yajurveda, they say. These are all allegorical stories to point out that even his vomit is so good, his an intellectual power. This Gargi Vachanakri was able to challenge this Yajnavalkya in a debate. I don't know, maybe one day I can myself teach those kind of debates, Yajnavalkya debates. It will be really, really good. I mean, it shows that towering intellect this lady had to be able to challenge Gargi Vachanakvi. So for you today, I brought in the lady Rishika, one of the oldest. They call her as the feminist of oldest feminist in the universe. They call her. Who feminist is the wrong word to use, but that's what they call. She was intellectual horsepower, and she was teaching a lot of men and women in her lifetime. So that is the women Rishika for you, Biral and others. Okay, so last time we stopped at a particular point. I think if you remember, we talked about the time being seen as a power of Maya, etc. That's where we stopped. Um, Kapila was trying to answer to his mother, Devahuti, who was asking, if you remember, she was asking that, I spent all my lifetime chasing after wealth, etc., but I forgot to ask my husband, who was a wise guy. I forgot to learn from him. So can you teach? And the son, Kapila, teaches her this Sankhya model. Like I said last time, many of these stories are told to create a context of a conversation. In other words, in reality, Kapila is not teaching all these things to his mother, Devahuti. Actually, he's teaching us. Like Naveen was asking, ever since I don't know how many hundreds or thousands years back, he told this to his mother. Every year, any given moment, if you say, There may be 100 people at least studying this Bhagavata, this particular chapter. Every day, if you look at it, today I'm talking about it, tomorrow somebody else may be talking somewhere else in the world. That is the nature of these kind of wisdom material. So this conversation is more for us than for Devahuti. Now, I will try to probably project a slide just to help you recall, because this is the Sankhya model. Are you able to see?
Yes.
Yes. So this is what the Sankhya model is all about. This is what is going step by step. Now, I call it as cognitive psychology. I do not know whether the professional psychologists will agree with my definition, but this is what I would like to call it, because what it does is it helps you to understand how the senses which we have, the five senses which we have, the sense of seeing, touching, smelling, and so on and so forth, how they grasp the signals which come from the external world, the objects, the people, the idea, the sound, they're all objects. How the signals are picked up and where does it go? Number one. And number two, what happens of this? After all, everybody's got eyes. As long as the eyes are healthy eyes, right? Uncorrected glass or whatever it is called, 20/20 vision or whatever they call medically, the signal will be the same. As long as body is healthy, if you touch a warm entity, everybody will get the same signals. Likewise for all the senses. But the question is, if the physical senses pick up the same or similar signals from the objects, why would people respond differently is the question to be answered. If you remember, I gave an example of Bittergourd, Karela as an example, that very few people like it, but why some people love it? It is same. The property, the characteristics of the Karela is identical to the people who love it, people who hate it. It means that there seems to be two types of Karelas or the bitter gourds. One, the material object, bitter gourd, which transforms, signals go in and it gets transformed into an internal object for each and every person. That internal object created is different from the material object called bitter gourd, because the likes and dislikes of the people, individual people, put a coating on it and makes it very different. Therefore, we have to explain how does this happen. So, likewise, what reaction comes to us when we see a thing which we like or dislike? Then we say our mind gets attracted, or our mind gets repelled. Then what is mind? Then you have to say. And we also have to say, sometimes, even though our mind says do this, we don't do it. There's something in us overrules the way the mind is going here and there and says that's not the right thing to do, let us not do it. What is that instrument, faculty, which tells the mind not to do certain things, being judgmental? Then we call it intellect. And not only there's an intellect which helps to judgmental, not only the mind which goes here and there, not only the signal which picks up, not only other elements which have some kind of a enactment or redirection or recreation of the object to differently to different people. Not only all those things have, there seems to be another entity in us which says, I like this, I don't like this. But who is that feeling I? Where does it I come from? Right? That also has to be explained and so on and so forth. And then we also have to explain why of several things. That is why this model was created. That's why I called it the psychology model, because it helps us to understand why the cognition varies from person to person. The reason for that. So this is the one which I keep talking. I think many number of times I've talked about it. This is what, actually speaking, Kapila is trying to explain. Yeah. Anybody wants to say anything? Any comment on this? Any question? No question? Okay. Now, I stopped here. The Purusha, Mula Prakriti, and Mahata, somewhere we stopped here. So we're going to go further. Kapila is going to explain to his mother more details about how these things operate.
So,
Yeah.
sir, are you explaining more on this slide or going to the next one?
No, this slide, the same slide, and I'm going to keep it as a backdrop for the conversation. No, because the text does not contain this thing.
Got it.
I can, if I can remove this slide if that's going to distraction.
I was wondering, you are done with this and going to next one, or you want to explain more? No, I got the answer. I think it's better you can keep this one so that we can refer.
Okay, got it. Shall I keep it then? Okay. Deva Chubita Dharmanyam Swasyam Yeno Parapuman Adatta Viryam Sasut Mahatattvam Hiranmayam. This is where we start about it. This Mahat became, when the Mula Prakriti, the Purusha is a witness. Prakriti is a nature which is pretty active. If you recall, I gave the example that if you all go back in your age and start thinking, you may be 30, 40, 50, 60 years now. If you think back and say, oh my God, I can remember myself when I was 6 years old. And today I'm 60 years old or 50 years old. Though many things have changed in my appearance and so many different types of experiences I've had, but there is something in me which is not aged at all. I'm same. Whatever I was at 60, same as at 60, 50. That means there is something in me which has not aged at all. What is that? That is the Purusha principle, which remains a mere witness, which does not participate in all the agitations, all the involvement which happens in your life. You should be able to grasp it. I mean, like I said, it's one thing to hear me say, another for you to try to understand yourself. You should try. In case you don't, it does not resonate, what I'm saying does not resonate with you now, I would strongly request you to think back, next couple of weeks, try make an effort to see what is it I'm witnessing, right? How to find it out? If you see something on us as an object, you are not that. That is basic, simple logic. You are able to see the fan which runs on the ceiling, therefore you are not the fan because you are seeing it. You are seeing your body, therefore you are not the body. You're able to see, quote unquote, what happens in your mind, all the thoughts, therefore you are not the object, or you are not the mind itself because you are able to see it as an object. When mind is pulling this way, that way, you are able to see the intellect telling you what to do or what not to do. Therefore, you are not intellect either. You are able to experience a lot of joy many times, a lot of sorrow many times. But you know that intuitively, at least you know that there seems to be somebody in you who is experiencing the joy today and sorrow tomorrow. But the fact that you're able to see that you experience joy today and you experience sorrow tomorrow makes that entity, which is really experienced, an object for yourself. And if you dig deeper, you will recognize that in reality, that entity which is merely witnessing all these things is never ever agitated. Neither does it jump up and down because something wonderful happened, nor does it go and sit in a corner and cry because some sorrow happened. It is merely a witness. And that entity, you'll see, never aged. Yeah. Now, I would like each one of you to tell me, does it make sense? Do you get a hang of what I'm saying? It's very, very important.
Yes. I'll ask a quick question after everybody responds.
Okay. Yes, Rashmi, do you get that? Do you really feel that? You have to feel this.
Yes, Paddy uncle. Let me. I'm still thinking. Let me just give me 2 more minutes. I'm still thinking. I think I have a question, but I'm still thinking. Give me just 2 more minutes.
Very nice, not a problem. Abhi,
Can you hear me? I was trying to play with the button. Not yet there, Patty Uncle. Still, I'm digesting
okay.
the fact. I'm trying. I don't understand. I got what you're trying to say, but how do you identify that thing? Because you're saying it's not palpable, like it's not materialistic. You cannot touch it. You know it is there, but at the same time, you're saying that exists as a thing that does not get agitated in throughout your last 60 years of your life. Like, but what is that thing? But how do we recognize that thing exists? Like, it's virtual, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Uh, uh, I mean, yeah, you have to experience that. You will experience it as a do a process of self-awareness. You should be able to experience, not as object. Yeah, observer, object, observation process. Not like that. It is a
i-
self-awareness process.
is it your inner voice or different from your inner voice?
You could call anything you like. Then we get divergent into what is inner voice and all the stuff. It is core. That is the real you, which does not participate in the activities, merely a witness, and therefore it does not age at all. Miral, Miral, we couldn't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Yes.
Yes, I didn't understand totally the question. So the question is that have I ever experienced that I didn't, I know that it was there a long time and, or, it's within me for a long time and just, watch it. Is that what the question is?
Yeah, have you experienced it? Is the question.
So I experienced one time, some time ago, I looked at the wall and I did see the pine trees. And when I was a child, my parents used to send me in this military camps to get strong because I was very skinny child and sickly. And they used to send us out in the middle of the night to protect so-called, this child, camp. So I had to get up like 1 o'clock and 1 to 3 in the middle of the night with another girl. I had to stand in the woods, in the middle of the woods, nowhere. And honestly, I was really, really very sleepy, and I had to go to the bathroom very badly. And I was sleepy, and I had a lot of fears. And with my mind, I created this kind of from the trees that they became like figures. And some time ago, not too long ago, a few years back, I was sitting, and that feeling they came back again somehow. And I knew that I was born. I looked at it that we were born with this kind of embedded fear of the unknown, or I don't even know how to explain the whole experience. Really, I cannot explain it well, but I know that something is within us. These kind of feelings. We are born with it, but they are really not. They are just there, but we just make up these things with our mind. I don't know how to say it.
Okay, not
It's an inner experience what I had.
thank you. Anybody? If somebody raise a question, wanted to ask a question, right? And then Naveen said,
Yeah.
"Go ahead."
Actually, two questions. So one question is, yes, something is noticing right from the childhood, maybe like 4 or 5 years, or maybe 3 years, right? 3 year old, and is observing now. Something is always observing, right? As you mentioned, I feel that. what happened before 3 years? Only why after 3 years? It should be knowing every time. Like when I born from 0 to 3 or 4, what happened? Why it is not remembering? Only it is remembering only after 3 or 4. Why?
Okay.
That's one question. Second question.
Yes.
And the same thing, past life also. If it is every time there, why it is don't remember past life? Only this, whatever, like when I'm aware, that is the time I can tell, okay, I'm child, I'm teenager, now I'm like this. So it is telling only when I'm aware, like, but what happened to the 0 to 3 or 4 years? And what about past? That is one question.
Okay.
Second question, do you think that Purusha has been trapped in Prakriti?
No.
No?
They are two different entities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because if Purusha want to come out, but it still got stuck in that Prakriti, right? It can't come out. It has no way, right? That's what I'm saying.
We'll come to that, how the naughty problem. As you go further down,
Okay.
you start seeing Kapila explaining that, well, this is the reality, that Purusha is merely a witness, Prakriti is nature, which creates the Mahat, self-identification comes, and all that. When he is explaining, he will also explain that because of the wrong identification which people do, they start forgetting their Purusha. So the individual ego gets trapped. Not Purusha does not get trapped. The individual ego, which is responsible, like I said, there are something which is happening to specific individuals who like bitter gourd and many who dislike. That element, right, traps the individual, the jiva into this, into all this tangle. Forgetting that the whole problem is that you forget that you are Purusha. You think you are the individual defined the Naveen or Paddy and Abhi or something like that. That you're forgetting you are a Purusha. That is why this complication happens.
So Purusha is forgetting Purusha itself, you're saying?
Purusha is not forgetting Purusha. Purusha entity is there. If you allow me, probably as we go further, it will say
sure, go ahead.
transformation takes place.
Oh.
This is a very good question. This traces back to questions in Advaita also. How can the most intelligent person delude itself? The answer is, honestly speaking, only intelligent can delude themselves. Because intelligence throws all kind of options. Anyway, we'll talk about it. A little, if you bear with me a few more minutes, hopefully we'll get there today or next class. Yes, Rashmi.
So to answer your question, Paddy Uncle, is it conscious that is sitting and watching us no matter what happened? Say we got agitated, say we did something that we shouldn't be doing, right?
Correct.
So something inside us is sitting and calmly watching, correct? But how do I realize, how do I get to a point where, is that conscious? And how do I get to a point where I should be that person, being calm, but it's just the other side of me or something else that just threw a fit or something like that shouldn't be. So to answer your question, is it conscious, like self-awareness is consciousness that is sitting and watching, like you said?
Correct. That's what there is a Pradyanam. That's why Pradyanam is called Brahma. In one of the Veda Vakya, Pradyanam Brahma.
And how do we realize that is that through, again, like you said, meditation, yoga? Okay.
Contemplation and meditation, yoga, very, very different kind of bhakti, etc., are the one which will lead us there.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, then let me go on to the next loka. Vishmatma kadam vyanjan kutastho jagashankare swatejasa piba thibram atma prasvapanam tamaham. This mahat can be seen as a manifestation of Mula Prakriti. Here can be seen two different ways. At a macroscopic level, at a universe level, it is called the universal principle. At the individual level, it will get reflected as an individual ego. Yattat Sattva gunam tacham shantam bhagavata padam yadahu vasudevakyam chittam tanmaha atmakam. Now, we have to explain why this manifestation, this transformation of Mahat into something else, why it should be different for different people, What makes it different? The difference comes because different entities, different jivas are born with the different combinations of three gunas: sattva guna, tamo guna, rajasa guna. If you remember, we talked about it early on. Sattva guna is the one which keeps us calm, not to react very into the extreme way, whereas tamasa guna is a lackadaisical approach. You take, you don't care either way. On the other hand, Rajoguna makes you hyperactive, overreactive, frankly speaking. Depending on what percentage of which guna you have, your approach, your response will vary. So when the sattva guna dominates, almost to the exclusion of tamoguna and rajoguna, then vasudevakyam chittam tanmahat atmakam. If that happens, then the answer to all your question comes here. If that happens, when sattva-guna, the preponderance of sattva-guna is there, almost to the exclusion of other two gunas, that will take you to Vasudeva, Purusha. So the whole training is to increase your sattva gunas. All the activities, the food you eat, the way you behave, the skills you build up, all of them should be sattvic, as they say. Yeah. Swachatvam, avikaritvam, santatvam iti chetasaha, pritri abhilakshanam, proktam, yatha abham, prakriti param. Now, the consciousness, right, which we talked about now, is identified, is called as pure, untouched, unagitated. Just like a pure rainwater is so pure. That's what it is. That consciousness is our true identity. That is what we have to find out. I mean, we have to realize. Mahattattva vikurvanad Bhagavata virya sambhavad kriya shakti ahankara trividha samabhyatam vaikarika tejasam cha thamasa sa yato bhava manasa cha indriyanam cha bhutanam mahatam api. See, from this Mahat Tattva, the universal principle, springs up a specific identification for the individual, as the I-ness or the ego springs up. Why is it connected this way? When it comes to the Ishwara principle, the God principle, who is proposed, presented as a gunatita, which is not influenced by any gunas, and therefore is above any of these vicissitudes of emotions, and who is the knowledge himself. We all have knowledge, but the knowledge itself is Ishwara. Likewise, the wisdom itself is Ishwara, intelligence itself is. This is all considered the attribute of the Ishwara principle. Then the relations between us and this Ishwara principle is, there are three different points of view are there, but essentially, it all follows from the basic principle that the jivas are but reflections of Ishwara. Yeah, there's a very concise book called Brahma Sutra, which kind of summarizes anything and everything told, and there it calls it abhasa evacha. It gives the explanation. That means you are nothing but a reflection of Ishwara. Therefore, Ishwara is universal, infinite. Everything is infinite. Therefore, the Mahat pertains to the Ishwara principle, for example. Whereas the individual ego flows from here because you are merely a reflection of the Ishwara. Now, this concept that you are merely a reflection of Ishwara is something which I will talk separately another day. This is very, very tricky concept, and I'll go deep into that some other day. Right now, we'll keep it at this point in time that we are merely reflection of the Ishwara. From this mind, like I said, this Ahankara Tattva comes out from this Mahat, and then the Buddhi is there, the mind comes out. right? Sahasasirisam sakshat anantam prachakshate sankarshnakyam purusham bhutendriya manomayam. Now these gross elements, like karmendriya, jnanendriya, this mahabhuta, five bhutas put together, they are all called gross elements. This is under senses, and the mind, right, is collectively called as sankarshana. Now some of us who do Sandhyavandana, for example, we always say Sankarshana is one of the names. We touch ourselves, call it Sankarshana, because the way we touch ourselves is because this combination of the Panchabhutas, the senses, and the mind combination is termed Sankarshana. Sankarshana, by the way, is a thousand-headed snake. That is what the Puranas, Bhagavata says. Why is it thousand-headed snake? Because in your mind, combination of mind, external signals, as well as your senses combination is, there are thousands you run after, not one or two. Why is it called a snake? I mean, this is my interpretation. It is called a snake because it's poison. Going after senses to thousands of things around us is poison. Therefore, it is called as a thousand-headed snake. Kartrutvam karnatvam cha karyatvam cha iti lakshanam shanta ghora midu vimudatvam iti va syat aham krite. Now, to answer to the Naveen's question comes. Purusha does not get confused, but the individual ahankara, driven by a false sense of identity of kartrutvam karnatvam cha karyatvam, the individual ahankara starts thinking that I am the doer, I am making choice, I am acting, I am deciding, I am active, I am involved, and I am enjoying. This thought comes, and this thought is the one which locks us down. Whereas our real identity was mentioned as a consciousness, which is all pure, etc., like a pure water from a rain, that is the Purusha principle. But how does this happen? For example, many times in our day-to-day life also we can see that, like for example, is Naveen a very technical person, an architect kind of a person, IT architect kind of a person?
Yeah, I'm technical.
Technical architect, right? So what happens is you do it so often in the day-to-day activities in office, you think that is you. Then, even when you go in a social circle to have general, with friends and relatives for a function, you behave like you are an architect. Sales guys behave like a sales guys. The CEOs behave like CEO guys. The quality guys, for example, are the terrible guys to be friends with. When the quality guys come, they will always find fault. This is not okay, that's not okay, because that's what they do every time. Though they're a person, we are all persons. We are not architects. We are not lawyers. We are not salespeople. We are not quality professionals. We are not. That is a role we play, but we mistake ourselves to be the role which we play, and we behave like the role we play everywhere else. The same way, the ahankara forgets the real identity is Purusha and gets entangled because of the identification and the preponderance of the three gunas. Does it give you an answer, Naveen, as to why, who gets confused and why we get confused?
Yeah, this part is clear, but I'm still confused how this reflection formed.
Yeah, as I told you, I'll give us a separate session on how this abhasa reflection is. Okay, because that's very technical. I have to explain a lot of things, which will impact the flow. I promise you next time or some other time I will give whole thing. The reflection theory is a very big concept.
Sure.
Dvaita, Vishishta, Dvaita have fought wars, book wars on this. What exactly is reflection?
Sure.
Right? Like for example, for Advaita, this reflection means a mistaken notion. Therefore, both are identical or same, similar at least. Dvaita says never it can be. It is just like a sun which gets reflected on so many waves in a pond, right? Each wave can have a small little sun. It cannot think I am sun. The reflection may look like a sun, but it's not sun. That is Dvaita's viewpoint of view. Vishishtadvaita's viewpoint is that it's a kind of combination. We are like that because we are a part of that.
Hmm.
Okay, these are nuances
Okay, sure.
how you approach it, but essentially it shows that every jiva is merely a reflection of Ishwara, and therefore the divinity is inside us to reach. That's the basic idea. Yeah.
Mhm.
Vaikarikat vikurvanat manaha tattvam ajayata yat sankalpa vikalpabhyam vartate kama sambhavaha. Then what happens is this transformation happens in ahankara tattva, where the emotions get involved because of the gunas are active, likes, dislikes happen, emotions get involved. That is called as mind. Mind is not a specific organ, frankly speaking. You cannot find, no X-ray can find a mind. The modified nature, ahankara tattva keeps acting several different ways. In that way, when it gets emotionally entangled and shows all kind of emotion, that state is called, mind is born. But once the mind is born, it is not like a species or a human being or an animal is born. This birth is not like that. It is like saying that, many times we say, no, oh my God, when I'm angry, I'm not myself. You are yourself all the time, frankly speaking. But it's a figure of speech. Even you cannot believe you did these things or you said those things when you are angry, and therefore you say, I was not myself. Because the mind is just transformed so much with agitation, you almost become a different entity. That likewise is a transformation of the same thing. I mean, very, very crudely said that when a water is calm in a beaker, that is buddhi, ahankara, whatever, chitta, whatever you call it, you put it in a pot and boil it, when a lot of bubbles come up, right? That's still water. It has not changed. Water is water. But the fact is a lot of activity bubbles are there. Therefore, we call that boiling water as manas. It's a crude example I'm giving. A still calm water is called ahankara or buddhi or even purusha level. And when it is boiled and agitated, a lot of bubbles, you call that state of water as a manas state. So that is what is called born. It is a temporal thing, not a physical thing. Yeah. Yet viduhu hi aniruddhakyam Vishikanam Adishwaram Sharada Indivara Shyamam Samradhyam Yobihi Shanay. This is very important. This mind, right, is called Aniruddha. Again, we use the word Aniruddha in our Sandhyavantanam. Right? So he's the supreme ruler of Yat Viduhu. Please learn, no. Aniruddhakyam Vishikanam Adishwaram. This is the supreme ruler of senses. Sharada Indivara Shyamam. That means in the autumn, the clouds are there, rainy clouds are there. You see a blue, black kind of cloud. Sometime back it was there in the sky. That kind of a colored entity is Aniruddha, which resides in you. And at that point in time, it's called Aniruddha. And this can be ascertained or experienced by yogibihi shanai, by sustained meditation efforts, or patiently and perseverantly. If you do that, you will be able to recognize this mind as Aniruddha. In other words, you can see how Kapila is trying to explain. This will postulate to explain what we observe. How an entity, which is Purusha, which is merely a witness, consciousness entity, which is merely a witness, which is like pure water, like rainwater. Why should it get entangled? If you are a reflection of Ishwara, why are we getting entangled? Because there is a structure in how we observe. Each one of us, we may get the same signals from our external world using our jnanendriyas, act upon it using your karmendriyas. However, there are certain elements which I would call as a post-processor, which interpret these signals and gives it, feeds it differently to different people, and therefore the mind and buddhi responds very differently for the same signals. And why this difference comes? Because the gunas of each jiva is different. Mixture of three gunas are different. Why should there be a difference in the mixture of three gunas? That is where we tie it to the past lives, all the karma you have done, all the effort you have done to pick up good behavior, good attitude, etc., bad behavior, bad attitude, etc. Depending upon whatever you have done in the janma, previous birth, our gunas will be different. Consequently, we react to the same situation differently from all others. This is how they try to tie everything together. In other words, the onus, the responsibility is on you. There's no magic in this game. You want to be a better person, have more sattva than rajasa and tamasa guna, then you must make a lot of effort this time. You're born, there's nothing you can do about it. Whatever you're born, whatever shape, size, color, attitudes you're born with, that's it. There's nothing you can go back and correct. But you have an opportunity to correct the present and ensure our future births will have a lot more sattva guna than tamasa guna and rajoguna. If we have more and more sattva guna, I mean, as it were, we can say we are moving up and up and up and in this chart. Maybe it is wrong to say this, but just to make a point, I'm saying this. If we have very little of sattva guna and too much of rajoguna and tamasa guna, we are here. We are always thinking about objects, always, 24/7. We're not thinking of anything else at all. You asked a question whether moksha is objective by everybody. I said no, it is a need, but everybody do not think it's a moksha, because if your mind is so focused always on external objects for pleasure and joy, etc., you are here. You don't even know there is something called mind, ahankara, buddhi, and purusha. You don't even know this. And even if you're taught, you say, forget about it, this is all crap. You go and take this slide and tell half a dozen of my friends, they will say nonsense. Some old guy, who had no time, no work, wrote this, they will say. Because that's what they are. They're tied here. There is a group of philosophy called Charvaka philosophy, materialistic philosophy, which believes that all these ideas are wrong. All these complicated ideas are wrong. These are only ancient. I'm not talking about today's atheists. Those days, still in India, they told, oh, forget about all those things. You got a body is the only real stuff. External objects are the only real stuff. Everything is a speculation. Like you rightly point out, Naveen, there are so many books, there's so many different things. So why should we waste time on it? Enjoy life. That's the objective of being born. And once you're done, it's done. When you're dead, there's nothing to come back or anything. You got one chance to enjoy it, better enjoy. In fact, they even go in Sanskrit, there's a statement which says that even if you have to borrow, go and borrow money, but enjoy it. Then you are here. But if you want to accept this notion, why you want to accept this notion, this structure? Because you see that you indulge more and more, there seems to be no satisfaction. And it seems to be temporary. Any joy you get, pleasure you get is temporary. It's gone again. You want it again. You want it again. You want it again. And suddenly you find that, I used to love the sweets a lot. I'm a sweet tooth. But suddenly I got diabetes. I cannot eat. What happens to you liking for sweet? It's still there. But you cannot eat. Therefore, you feel more sorrowful because whenever you look at the sweets, whenever you go to the party, there are a lot of sweets of gulab jamun is there. You can't eat it. You feel sorrow. Therefore, if somebody were to rationalize and think about it, they'll say that it's not going to help me at all going after this sensory pleasures. It's there. After all, we have senses. We have born with certain encumbrances. So we are. But we will make every effort to disconnect our senses, disconnect our mind, disconnect our intellect from the external objects. That effort will begin. Then you'll do, oh my God, I'm not able to. Then they say, okay, what you do is do yogasana for 20 minutes a day, do pranayama for 5 minutes a day, sit in a corner, think of your God, which you like Ram, Krishna, whatever. 2008 chanting you do. You trust somebody who says, then you start doing it. Suddenly you find that you're able to pull back your mind, if not every time. Out of 1,000 temptations, at least one temptation you're able to reduce. Slowly it builds up. Sattva-guna becomes bigger and bigger proportion of your mind. That is how you climb up the ladder and move towards this so-called Purusha principle, which is consciousness, nothing else. Yeah? Samsayo atha viparyasau nischayah sutrevacha swapa ityuchate buddhir lakshanam vrittitaha pratak. Now let's define buddhi or intellect. Doubt, misapprehension, samsaya, viparyasaha, nischaya, definitive conclusion, correct observance, smriti, memory, right? Dullness, so on and so forth. These are all the attributes of an intellect. The intellect can tell you when the mind goes here and there, intellect can throw doubts about it. Now you see why only intelligent principle can get confused. Because only intelligence has the ability to throw a doubt. What if it is wrong? That comes from the intelligence. Mind just goes. So, doubt, wrong understanding, like for example, we get scared when we see a rope in the darkness as snake. That's the wrong apprehension. Only intellect can do that. And later correct itself saying, oh my God, it's only a rope, not a snake. Correct apprehension. But once that memory is etched, that snake can be dangerous, that memory is the one which caused you to think the rope is a snake. So on and so forth. That is the characteristics of the intellect. Yeah. Meral, you have a class that's on?
Yes, I do.
Okay, then it's 6:55 already, so we'll stop here. So in other words, this is what Kapila is explaining to Devahuti, saying that this is what happens. The reason why we all get bewitched and get entrapped is because of this reason. Our identification, our mind and intellect is so driven by our gunas, we start identifying ourselves wrongly. And that identification takes us more and more away from our consciousness principle. And he's going to obviously tell you, he'll elaborate it a little more. And obviously he's going to tell a method. Like, it's nice to have a diagram, it's nice to have explained stuff. But so what? How do we get that? Is a question all of us have, right? He's going to do that. That we will consider in the next session. Any questions? Any last commentary anybody wants to make? And we'll close the session.
Thank you very much for teaching, for all the teaching.
Naveen, anything?
No, thank you, sir.
Okay, Rashmi?
Thank you, Padil.
No, thank you,
Good.
man. Thank you. That's good.
Rather quiet this time, so I feel very nervous. So next time, hopefully, you'll ask me some tricky questions. Yeah. Thank you, guys. So,
Thank you.
I'm sorry? Did you say anything, Abhi?
No, I said thank you. No, I'm
Okay.
good.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Namaste.
guys.
Namaste.
Namaste. Oh, happy.